Hello and welcome. US actor Keith Carradine's early talent for cartooning and painting was the perfect background for his role in the controversial film The Moderns. Originally planned to be shot in the late 70s and directed by Alan Rudolph, the movie came close to casting rock star Mick Jagger in a story about famous expatriate Americans in 1920s Paris. However, the production plans fell through. Key films had included Nashville, Pretty Baby, The Duellists, Choose Me, and the western The Long Riders, but 12 years later, in 1987, the film was eventually produced, with Montreal doubling as the French capital. The story involved a love triangle, art forgeries with some strange plot twists, and touches of satirical humour. It starred Keith, Linda Fiorentino, Geraldine Chaplin, Wallace Shawn and French-Canadian actress Genevieve Bujold. I caught up with Keith in Montreal during the film's production, and he recounted Mick Jagger's possible involvement and how the film reignited his passion for painting.
Alan was saying that originally, all those years back when he was wanting to do the film, that you were going to do it then with Mick Jagger on board.
Yes.
How close did that come to?
We were about 6 weeks from starting filming. Then it all fell apart because our backer said that he wouldn't give us the money without a guarantee of release from one of the major studios.
Right.
And it was all falling apart, and I was already in Paris. In fact, I had taken another job. It was the Michael Ritchie film that I did about the Cannes Festival, which was at least successful. And but I was in Paris filming that, and I was staying in an apartment in Le Marais, and about 1:30, 2 in the morning, the phone rang one night, and it was Mick, wanting to know what the heck was going on and why the film was falling apart. He didn't understand it, and if we were having so much trouble getting the money, he'd get the money. And we talked for it must have been half an hour. But I never have actually sat down with him and met him face to face. But he seemed like a good guy, and he was really excited about it. Yeah.
And it just never happened. Yeah. But in the interim, I gather, you've also discovered, or rediscovered rather, a talent for painting.
Well, I used to paint and draw quite a lot when I was a kid, and in fact, it was what I thought I wanted to do with my life. There was a time when I wanted to be a commercial artist, and I used to do a lot of cartooning. I did a cartoon for the high school paper and all of that. I painted with oil, although I never studied it. I had a talent for it. And then when I started playing music, I put down my brushes. The last time I painted anything, I was, I think, 17.
Really?
So it's exactly 20 years ago.
So what was the difference between painting and music? Why the music instead
music
of painting?
Seemed to be more attractive to the girls.
Seriously?
Well, I don't know, music was such a kind of, it just became more immediately satisfying, and I found it more kinetic than painting, and it was a more direct, immediate sort of expression of whatever I was emotionally experiencing. It seemed to give me more satisfaction.
And painting is a very lonely thing.
Extremely.
Well,
I mean, you can't sort of sit around and paint with the guys.
No.
But
well, it's the same with writing. You can't.
Yeah, no, not absolutely.
It's very lonely.
So, I started songwriting, and that was drawing and designing in any way just fell by the wayside. And then I came up here to do this. And in fact, the last time we were going to do this, when I was in Paris, I was drawing quite a lot. I was copying Cézanne sketches out of art books and having fun with it, but I hadn't actually sat down with brushes and started to paint. And then the whole thing fell apart, and I was so discouraged that I stopped drawing and painting. And
There wasn't
because of my domestic circumstance now. I mean, when I'm home, I'm a father and a family man, and my daily life is consumed with this sort of more mundane aspects of doing that. Raising kids.
How many kids have you got?
My wife and I have 2 children.
Right.
Little ones, One's 5 years old and the other's 2 years old.
Uh-huh.
So they're a real handful, and you know, we don't have a huge house. We're not wealthy, and you know, so I don't have this studio that I can sequester myself in. You know,
Where do you
not
live?
that I would want to anyway, because I enjoy my time with my kids. So I really don't have much time to do that sort of quiet,
Yeah.
you know, lonely thing. And it's really, you know, I mean, it's wonderful, but it, you know, it's kind of self-indulgent when you have people who need you like that. So I basically didn't do any painting at all until I got up here. And then I went, as soon as I got here, I went straight to the art store. I had them get me an easel and some of the basics, you know, some paint and some brushes and stuff. And it was all sitting in my hotel room when I got here. And then the first day I was here, I opened up and I picked a Cézanne oil, one of what I thought would be the more simple things to try and copy. And I copied it, one of his paintings of Mont Saint-Victoire. And I copied it very impatiently. I spent quite a lot of time on the sky and the mountain itself, and then when it got to the landscape in the foreground, I got rushed. I became impatient, and I sort of slapped it off. So I spent about 3 hours on the whole thing. But what I discovered was that I could find the colors. I would look at his colors, and admittedly, I was looking at them from a photographic plate in an art book, so they're probably an accurate, you know, comparison to seeing the real thing. But it was a lot of fun to duplicate the color, and then the next time, you know, I showed it to Alan, and I showed it to David Stein, who said, you know, that I was obviously an amateur, but that I had talent. And with that sort of encouragement, then I sat down, and Alan said, well, why don't you do this? And he showed me, you know, the shrine of modern art, which is Picasso's Les Demoiselles d'Avignon. So he said, why don't you copy that? And I said, well, okay. And so I started sketching. And I sketched it out. I laid it out on a canvas, and I took my time with it. I spent some time copying it. But because I didn't have the right shaped canvas, I had to leave a few inches at the bottom. And then when I left it blank, Alan said, "Well, why don't you make it a heart?" You know, which is my character. He would do something like this, and then add something weird and incongruous. So I thought, well, Oiseau, Wallace Shawn's character in the film, was always talking about going to Hollywood, and the Hollywoodland sign was put up in 1924, so I figured, well, I'll just stick that in, you know. So now we have Les Demoiselles de Hollywoodland. And I signed it, my character,
Hard.
26.
Right. But you also did that there.
And then I did the Van Dongen. Now, I had finished this one, and Alan was so delighted with my progress that he said, well, now why don't you try this one, you know? Because he wanted to use the Van Dongen as sort of the ad for the film. He said, why don't you do that, but why don't you kind of like change it in some way? And I said, well, why don't I try and put our characters, the film's characters in it? And he said, well, if you can, completely different. So I took the Van Dongen, and I added 2 more figures, and put the characters of the 7 principals
Into it.
And Paris by Night at the bottom. And I got that skyline from a book. There was a photograph of
Right.
Paris Night.
So you really have been able to get into the character. I mean,
Oh God!
More
it's
so.
been- well, yeah. I mean, it's really been, you know, that's half the fun of what we do as actors is getting into these different worlds. You know, the last thing I did before Christmas was I played a Kansas State Highway Patrolman, and it was a real guy, and I spent a lot of time with him.
What was that
And
film?
it was something for CBS television. It was a 4-hour miniseries. And so I spent quite a lot of time with this guy, John Rule, and riding around in his patrol car. And many actors have done that. I mean, you know, as long as we've been playing policemen, so there's nothing particularly new about that. This time, what I've gotten to do is paint, and it's been great. I have gotten so much enjoyment out of it that, in fact, I'm torn between where I'm having more fun, whether it's on the set or in my hotel room. You know.
Painting.
Yeah.
What about the change in the character from the original? You know, going back to that time when you were going to possibly do it with Mick, and the character that you're playing now, obviously with Alan's different view of it, he must have changed dramatically.
Really, the basic character, I mean, the core of the character really hasn't changed. How he fits into that world hasn't really changed. The story has changed in some ways. John Bradshaw's input certainly made a difference. He kind of unified the storyline and gave it more structure than we had before. And the plot itself is, I think, one of the most interesting and at the same time easiest to follow of any of Alan's films. But my character, I mean, the biggest change that my character has gone through is me, because I'm 12 years older than the last time we talked about doing this, you know. I mean, the last time he was going to be this, you know, young American expatriate, and now he's this not so young American expatriate.
What about Paris? I mean, to me, Paris is the second most beautiful city in the world after Sydney. But it's a wonderful city to be.
You're going into politics next.
No. No, but I mean, it is. I mean, it's just a wonderful, wonderful city.
Yes.
Whatever I do after the Cannes Film Festival, I rearrange everything.
You always stop in Paris.
Yes.
I know the feeling. I love Paris. And in a way, it's certainly been a disappointment that we couldn't do the film there. But we just flat couldn't afford it. No. And in fact, scenically and logistically, it would have been just as difficult to create the Paris of the 20s in Paris as it has been to try and create it here. You can't really pull back and get a skyline in Paris now and call it 1920. It's impossible. And to get any kind of a large production shot on Paris streets would have required a great deal of camouflaging and sort of making up things to hiding parking meters and all of that stuff.
Television aerials.
Yeah. It would have been quite difficult. What we would have had would have been we would have had Paris to spend our nights in instead of. I have nothing against Montreal. In fact, it's a delightful city, but it isn't Paris.
What about prior to this and the CBS film? Have you done any other features at all?
I did a feature for ITC at the end of last summer called Backfire with Karen Allen.
Oh yeah.
And I'm not sure when they're going to release it. It's just in the final post-production stages.
What's the story
Gilbert
on that?
Cates directed it. It's a suspense thriller.
So who directed it?
Gilbert Cates.
I don't know. It's not Phoebe Cates' father by any chance. American or British?
Well, he's American. He's the president of the Directors Guild, in fact.
Oh, right.
And good director. We've known each other for a number of years.
Some of Keith's most recent work includes the TV series Madam Secretary, in which he plays the US President, and the film The Devil and the Day Long Brothers. And by the way, he's 76 years old this year.